listening to They Came from the North, your weekly dose of smarm, growling, grumbling, fighting, and general Canadian skullduggery and shenanigans.
Extra grumbling this week.
This week. This is a grumbly week.
Tremendous value.
What do we call rabble-rousing north of the wall?
Rabble-rousing. We still just call it rabble-rousing. We can get Gabe to say it in his rich Quebecois accent.
Rabble-rousing.
There we go.
With me, as usual, I have from further west than me, Mr. Gabriel Girard.
Bonjour.
And Mr. André Faubez. Mais oui, From further west and south of us, our token American, Mr. Michael McVeigh.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
If he's the token American, does that mean he dies first?
Generally, yes. Well, we were getting a lot of hate mail from the United States that said we were racist against Yankees. So, we had to add a token Yankee.
I gotta represent.
You represent.
So does that mean I'm the one who survives as the minority person?
Does that mean we get to start calling Mike Lando?
Gabe, I think you survive because you're the most effeminate.
Oh.
Gabe's our
don't worry, America. I'm gonna take care of this.
I got this. Do you know who the last person to say "I got this" was? The character who died in Sons of Anarchy this season.
That's not funny. That guy just died, man.
We're not going to say names. Just in case.
Sons of Anarchy?
Yeah, in real life, the actor.
Oh, the other guy. No, he was...
Yeah, it's a really crazy story about this guy who apparently killed his
landlady that jumped off the roof of his house or something?
Died, yeah.
Anyway,
I don't think he's talking about Half-Sack. I think he's talking about the actual character who died.
The actual actor.
Sons of Anarchy actors killed himself.
Yeah.
No, we're talking about the big character who's been there since season 1 who was killed off in the show.
Oh.
Who we won't spoil.
Now, bath salts, no more mentions.
Also with me, my fellow partner in crime and member of the Newfoundland Shambling Dead, Mr. John Mercer.
Ahoy, ahoy.
And
Moosey.
Was that the broadcast delay to account for language?
I wasn't sure exactly what he was going to say, so I put him on a time delay.
I'm going to get my Capricorn 1 calculator out and figure out where he is.
And I, of course, am your host. I am Steve Power. This week, we are continuing our little October traipse through Horrorland.
Spooktacular.
They came from the north, Viking burial of famous horror directors. With what many consider to be the founder of the modern perception of the zombie. And for that alone, I would love to drive something long, sharp, and made of steel right between his damn eyes. We are, of course, talking about George A. Romero, who was born to a Cuban father and Lithuanian-American mother in New York in 1940. He began his career shooting short films and commercials, during which he filmed some stuff for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, of all places.
That's why that show scared me as a child.
One of the segments...
Frank Rogers, you sick fuck.
In one of the segments, he filmed a sequence in which Mr. Rogers underwent a tonsillectomy. This inspired Romero to go into the horror film business for some bizarre reason. He, along with 9 friends, formed Image 10 Productions in the late 1960s and produced Night of the Living Dead in 1968. We don't need to tell you what happened after that. He had a run-in with fame, if not necessarily fortune, in the 1970s with some critically acclaimed movies like, of course, Night of the Living Dead. And we had The Crazies, which I believe was a cult hit at the time.
Oh, can we say it like the trailer? The Crazies!
And
No, you're not making the radio sound effect in the background.
The crazies. It's repeated about 17 times.
And what is
Opening at these
probably
local Detroit theaters.
Suspiria.
what is probably his most critically acclaimed, if not outright most popular film, Martin. Why? I don't know.
It's okay. His most popular film. I'd never heard of Martin before last week.
Really?
Yes, really.
Wow. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, I should probably just get in there and say that I fucking hate Romero.
We're gonna have a great time.
So
Come on,
buckle
everybody.
up.
This is going to be extremely painful.
Come on, close Outlook, close Windows Live Mail. Don't start hate mail yet. Let us talk about his movies first before you start sending us hate mail. Then feel free to fire up your Gmail account and type.
Or
names.
to
send
bury
them to John.
to bury us with our heads sticking out of the sand.
He exited the 70s, with Dawn of the Dead, which was probably his most successful film and one of his most well-known. And did a third entry in his Dead series with Day of the Dead in 1985. Tucked in there were Creepshow, which was written by Stephen King and featured an anthology of horror stories modeled after the old 1950s pulp comic books. The
First of, I believe,
Anthology
3
or
collaborations with King.
spoofology?
we also have the critically lauded, underrated masterpiece, Night Riders. Of course, tucked in there somewhere, we had Monkey Shines, which the less said about it, the better.
Best poster of the 80s.
Absolutely. I love
The
that.
VHS cover that will live in infamy.
That's a scary, scary, scary poster.
1990s, Two Evil Eyes, which featured a collaboration with Dario Argento. Of course, the Stephen King adaptation, The Dark Half, in the early 90s. And one that I've actually never seen in 2000 called Bruiser.
I've seen that.
By all accounts, it was a masterpiece.
Unfortunately, no.
He did eventually return to zombies after writing an absurdly terrible screenplay for Resident Evil, the popular Capcom video game that itself was inspired by Night of the Living Dead.
Okay, let's just stop and examine that for a second.
No, we don't need to. We really
No, they felt that the Paul Anderson take on Resident Evil was better than the Romero take.
Mhm.
And
Like
this is
that
not Boogie Nights Magnolia Paul Anderson.
This is Mortal Kombat, Paul Anderson.
Fucking, I like Event Horizon Anderson better anyway.
He did return to his Living Dead series with Land of the Dead, and eventually he had, what was it, Survival of the Dead?
Yeah,
And
and
Diary of the Dead.
Diary of the Dead, or Diarrhea of the Dead, as I
When are we getting Dead of the Dead?
Dead of
Well,
the
in
Dead.
Diary of
Mike
the Dead,
proposed Dread of the Dead.
annoying main character was making a documentary called The Death of Death. And it was really deep.
Amazing. Last we heard, he appeared in Call of Duty Black Ops as an extra character in one of the zombie missions. And he was contacted by Claudio Argento to direct a 3D remake of Dario Argento's film Deep Red, which I don't think ever actually happened.
No, I can't see how that would be better. Regardless of your feelings on Argento.
So we'll get right into it. We'll hit the ground running, as it were, and I will start with Mr. Forbes. You're good, from director George A. Romero.
Well done. Good vocal work. All right, let me remind myself. All right, good. Creepshow.
Yes.
I have a soft spot for Dawn of the Dead, but if I'm honest, I think Creepshow may be his most, how do I want to put this? Not terribly made movie. It's
It's actually pretty slick.
It is. No, it's. I mean, one of the things for those who don't know, I mean, it's he and Stephen King sort of came up with this together. The idea of doing sort of an old EC Comics style anthology, sort of like the old what was that, the British company that put out all of those anthologies. Anyway, how
it's not relevant.
And from everything I say is relevant, Steve. So the basic idea is, you've got this kid who's reading comics and the stories from the comics come to life. So it's more of a comedic take on horror than straight horror. It's not particularly scary, but it's got a really good, it's not scary, but it's spooky. And it's got a lot of humor, and it's got a really good cast. I'm thinking probably the best cast he had to work with. It's got Hal Holbrook, Adrienne Barbeau, both of them, Leslie Nielsen, Ted Danson.
Stone cold prick too, Leslie Nielsen. That is the meanest Leslie Nielsen I've ever seen.
It's the great thing about it is it uses all of the sort of comic expectations we have, and that sort of great comedic charisma he has. But he, it twists it, and he's just really evil. But yeah, also Ted Danson, E.G. Marshall, a whole bunch of really good actors. The look is really good, really bright, vibrant colors. He does a really good job of making it kind of feel like it is sort of like popping right out of a sort of golden or silver age comic book. The effects are good. Tom Savini is doing the effects, so that's not a surprise. The real downside, probably, I would say, is Stephen King played character in this movie. It's a
meteor shit.
Yeah, I kind of think that Stephen King has, despite the fact that he's lived in the Northeast his whole life, he's kind of invented these ways that Northeastern people speak that only he has ever encountered. Because he does these crazy.
Jordy Verrill, you lunkhead.
Yeah, he's really terrible at it. The most kind of mugging, over the top comic acting you could imagine. But I mean, that's really the weak spot. The rest of the segments are really good, especially the one with Hal Holbrook and Adrienne Barbeau as his really annoying, screechy wife, and the lengths he'll go to get her out of the way. So that sequence, by the way, has the greatest golf clap scene of any movie ever made, to great comedic effect. So yeah, Creepshow, really good. And it actually looks like it was shot by a cinematographer who'd seen a camera before.
That's because it wasn't Romero.
Well, Romero, he had his usual guy all from, I think, right from the beginning, and I forget his name.
Michael Gornick?
Yeah.
That's the guy who directed Creepshow 2 as well.
Oh.
Dear.
We'll leave that alone for now.
Yeah. Anyone else want to chime in on Creepshow?
Actually, I'll pop in because Creepshow was also my choice for good.
Ooh.
And I don't know what else really you can say. I'm a sucker for horror anthologies. I even loved the long delayed 2007, 2009, whatever year it came out, Trick or Treat.
Mm-hmm.
And Creepshow has always been considered one of the best of these horror anthology films, and there's a reason for that. Romero let his hair down a little bit. He tried to have a little bit of fun with it.
I just had this image of him doing the Pantene glamoured hair toss.
And it's I've always found Creepshow to be an absolute blast, pretty much from start to finish. All the actors in it serve up tasty slices of ham. The comic book visuals work really well. I love how whenever the mayhem hits the screen, you get the lighting kind of turns to the old Dick Tracy style primary colors.
Mm-hmm.
And it honestly looks like one of the old Tales from the Crypt comics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one of his things that you see in a bunch of his films. For instance,
Yeah, but it actually works in Creep. It works in Creepshow.
it's in Monkey Shines a little bit, where one of the characters is linking telepathically up with a monkey, and it goes red, and then outside there's like a green lightning cloud and lightning.
Michael, you're making me sad.
To be fair, John, I mean, that happens every time I telepathically. So.
And I mean, you can say what you will about Jordy Verrill, but in 1982, I don't think there was really anything in the realm of horror bigger than Stephen King.
No, and no, his efforts like behind the scenes are great. Obviously, I mean, they co-wrote the script, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's his acting that I take issue with. It's yeah.
And I broke out the DVD, and it's been in our house since I first met my wife. There hasn't been a Halloween since 2003 that we haven't watched Creepshow. Mm-hmm. And I even loved like the way the trailer is done. It's marketed in the same manner that Raiders of the Lost Ark was. They really, did from the writer of Carrie and The Shining, from the director of Night of the Living Dead, and they've really, really milked that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a great movie. Great movie. There's so much stuff I love about it. I love the I finally got my cake, Bedelia. and Harris with hair.
A year ago.
Fucking scary.
And even having not seen it until then, I mean, it immediately, there was a nostalgic quality to it, of that sort of, golden age of Stephen King. I love.
And it was kind of nice seeing Romero without the whole, it didn't feel as nihilistic, right?
Didn't feel nihilistic. It didn't feel like it was trying to push any kind of half-baked social or political
middle American agenda.
Yeah. It just felt like two guys who really like the genre, having a blast. So, plus the kid at the beginning gets whooped hard by his dad.
His dad is Michael Hunsaker from Lethal Weapon, and when he reaches up and slaps the kid, this is last year when we watched it. My wife actually really impressed me, because then at the end of the movie, when his dad gets it, she said, "Heroin, you got off easy, you son of a bitch." And that just made me love the movie even more.
You're gonna say that made you love your wife even more?
I can't love my wife anymore. That's
oh.
Why? What did she do?
No, he's at max right now. He's at 11.
Yeah. I hit the level cap for love.
You have no more to give.
Yeah. She's not listening to this show. What am I going to do?
Ooh, listens to this show anyway.
When my eventual divorce comes, I'm going to carry a wedding photo in my wallet. Just to remind me to never do it again.
I know this is the horror month, Steve,
but were you kidding?
Man, Sarah's
your only way out. Your only way out is at the end of a shotgun.
I've already told you the secret to a successful marriage, John.
I forget.
Shotgun?
Mistresses.
You gotta cheat, son.
Anyway, Creepshow.
And then Leslie Nielsen comes after you.
Any more thoughts on Creepshow?
I'm saving it for later.
You're
dun
dun dun.
Not getting a Christmas card.
I thought that I was written off your list when I chose Argento.
I'd just like to say, scariest thing in Creepshow, Ed Harris disco dancing.
Yes. I kind of liked Creepshow, but it's not my good. But I'm not going to go next because, hey, I'm hosting. I have that privilege. Mike.
We should totally get a movie night, though, on the go, man. You and Sarah, myself, and Beth, and watch that shit.
We should. Sarah would probably hate it, but, she has taste anyway.
Man, no wonder.
Mike, what about you? What have you got for your good?
My good, I picked Dawn of the Dead.
Ooh.
I really, really, really like this movie.
I wanted to make that like dramatic sound from when the mall appears under the helicopter, but I realized it would just sound like "Buh." And that's not what I'm trying to get across with your choice.
I just
Once
love
we get
how,
a-
I love how
once-
Mike pronounced it. Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead. Once we get a corporate sponsor, we can afford sound effects.
Yes, right.
I like that John just made fun of another North American's pronunciation.
When we get enough, when we get a corporate sponsor enough so that Steve can give up his day job, then he will spend time editing and actually insert things like clever sound effects.
So this movie was made for $500,000 and it made over $55 million.
I didn't realize it was that cheap.
It was super cheap.
Yeah. It was Italian financed.
Okay, well, I kind of have to have a little more respect for it now.
It definitely.
Yeah, especially considering that the theme of the piece is consumerism. It's kind of funny. It made so much. Dario Argento had what do you call it? An alternate cut, actually.
He did, yeah. What was it, Zombie?
He had trouble with the humor. I thought it was too much humor, too many jokes, little
Which is
irony.
why I prefer the Argento cut now that I think about it. I was having a hard time differentiating, but actually, yeah.
At the beginning of Dawn of the Dead is so intense. It's really disturbing, right? I mean, you have that whole basement where people get. It's pretty crazy. Like right up front, you have homicides, suicides, cannibalism. Later on, you get like euthanasia. I mean, you get all kinds of like very disturbing elements mixed in there.
Guys having little like secret conversations about how they can perform an abortion if necessary. It's dark.
Very dark.
Well, it's not that dark actually, because they have the 3M blood.
Yes.
That they mentioned on the commentary I listened to. They weren't really Savini, who did all the makeup. Tom Savini wasn't really happy with this kind of melted down crayon style.
He really hated it.
So, but Romero kind of was like, yeah, let's go with it. Probably budgetary concerns, and rationalized it as saying that it really added to that cartoony element of the film. That's what it said on the commentary. I relay that to everybody at home. It's basically a movie about people basically overcoming the zombies and then getting destroyed by other people. We're our own worst enemy.
The zombies are us.
Yeah, you see this in science fiction, right? Aliens, but
THX 1138.
I really like so much about this movie. Like the fact that the protagonist is like blowing away kids with a shotgun or like an assault rifle. Yeah, but they don't show it. They let your imagination fill.
I think they were saying, I think you're talking about at the airstrip, right? And Ken Foree kind of like shoots his zombies. Yeah. Didn't he? I think he had like a real problem with that. And they were they're like Tom Savini's like
his kids,
or something, or his kids. Like, whatever, exactly. Just shoot him.
What's really awesome about that movie is the actor that plays Roger. That guy is basically just awesome the whole movie. Scott Reiniger, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Reiniger.
We got this, man. We got this by the ass.
That would probably be Reiniger.
Yeah.
That guy is like clockwork, man. He's so cool. He slides down the escalator. Oh man, so funny.
There's something really cool. Like, I really like Dawn of the Dead. I didn't pick it as my good because I do feel like there are some, I guess, craftsmanship aspects to it that I just can't overlook. And really say it's Romero's best.
That's all the Romero films, though. All the Romero films lack kind of polish and technical finesse. They're all low budget.
Some more than others.
Yeah.
But the atmosphere that the movie has, especially at the beginning in the TV studio when like everything's just going to hell, and you have, you know, whatever you may feel about Goblin, they've got that sort of like oppressive, like constantly like elevating score, like driving everything, and everyone's just panicking.
Isn't the Goblin only on the Argento soundtrack?
No.
The Argento cut?
No, it's on all of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Romero used a lot more sort of like goofy, like rights-free music that they just found in like the archive for the mall stuff.
Yeah, there was a lot of instant stuff in there. There was a lot of like Yeah.
My very favorite musical moment in that movie, it comes at the end. It's very goofy, superhero military march music.
Da, 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 da.
You know, yeah, like heroic, like yeah,
like
exactly.
A-Team.
Yeah, it's pretty much the A-Team theme. Like at the moment, at the ending, you know, and you know that film had the alternate ending. You know, it had the original ending. The two characters ended up like killing themselves. You know, very kind of bleak, you know, imagery with the helicopter blades and all this. You know, and during the shoot, they decided to change that up.
But oddly enough, I mean, one of the things that bugs me about it is they changed it up, but they had this strange like moment with one of them thinking about it, and then at the last possible second changing their mind, and it really does feel stupid. Like he's surrounded, and then it's like, oh, I've had enough. I'm just gonna stay here. It's like, if you got to that point, are you really then suddenly going to change your mind and start like doing like Dolomite Kung Fu on the zombies and like run up?
Yeah, but it's so great because it's like it's so jarring and like out of place, you know.
See, we're using the same words, but I think it's great.
I think, well, yeah, I mean, it certainly would have had a, you know, more impact if the ending was bleaker, but I like the whimsy that it ends on with the gonk. You know, that song, that funny mall music. It's just on repeat, you know, like over and over again. And that actually pops up in Day, you know, a little bit. I
forgot about the Robot Chicken theme. Thank you very much.
I find, you know, like, I grew up. I mean, the mall was kind of like a place to go, you know, like in upstate New York. It has some relevance to me. So I kind of, especially that style, you know, I'm of a certain age. So, you know.
Well, I mean, growing up in the Maritimes, it's like where all the malls basically were 25 years behind.
Yeah.
You know, like they hadn't bothered updating them since the mid-70s. So it felt like home to me.
Yeah.
It is a great concept. And I mean, one of the things that I was saying before we started recording is that, like, I feel like Romero, for all his faults with the actual filmmaking, he's really good at conceptualizing sort of horror setups. And I mean, you see that with all of the Dead films. Well, I say all. I really mean all three of the first. And you know, to some extent, even Night Riders is kind of an interesting idea. The Crazies is really cool. So he does have these really great ideas of how to.
Yeah, and even I think we'll get to that later, but one of the reasons that Martin is so lauded is because the concept is interesting.
Even if the movie itself isn't.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
But yeah, there's certainly some good stuff in Dawn of the Dead, but to me it's in need of some major cutting. It feels so long to me. It's so draggy and like.
But I think that works with the film. I think that it works because that's what the characters are going through, you know. So.
And it's one of those movies that I saw late as a film viewer, and that after hearing all the praise about it, I was kind of let down, and I was that's it, you know?
It's
This
I,
is
I
what all
kind
the
of have the
fuss was
same.
about.
I kind
Yeah.
of have the
Expectations.
same reaction, but the more I watched it, the more it grew on me. And I'm kind of halfway between Gabe and Mike in terms of the pacing, because there definitely is it is sort of important for the movie to get a bit bloated in the middle, to sort of really make you feel what the characters are going through.
Yeah, and then
Because I
it
think
gives
if it
lends
moved too
impact.
fast, you wouldn't feel, you wouldn't really understand their motivations sort of throughout the second
Yeah,
half.
I mean, he's
Well,
got a pretty
he-
simple formula. He sets these for the zombie films, these like, energized, like high kill beginnings, right? With stuff happening, and then these stretches in the middle. I mean, Day does this too, like where it's just just waiting and waiting, and not a lot happens, in terms of like the big gore, the big like, splatter scenes and whatnot. And then the whole time that middle section, it's growing and expanding on the characters and the character relationships. So by the time you already know what's going to come, what you can expect at the finale.
Well,
Things you
the
can
thing
tease.
the thing with the difference to me between Dawn and Day in term of the bloating and the middle act is that since they're in the mall and it's bigger, you feel less of the compressed situation and of the claustrophobia that you feel in Day because they're only in the small military compound.
But I think, that's kind of important because Dawn isn't so much about claustrophobia. It's about, they do have really everything they want, or everything
It's a
they thought they
fantasy.
wanted. They
It's a fantasy.
exactly,
No
and
way.
it's completely unfulfilling. So,
And that's
it is problematic as a viewer, like from a viewer perspective, but at the same time, as far as what the movie's about, I think if you did have that sense of claustrophobia and constant tension, then it wouldn't really work.
And what I like about Romero is, and this is the example that I'm using for my good, but at the very least, all of his movies are about something. Like he's not going out there and staying independent so he can make a buck, because he's not doing that. He's trying to, but he's making movies that mean something to him and say something.
I would argue that Night of the Living Dead only meant something after people started appending all kinds of meanings onto it.
Definitely.
And then he was like, oh.
And then his work became self-conscious.
Very much so.
As opposed to innocent when he first started, with his buddies and stuff. He'd only done a short film before that,
Mm-hmm.
So anyway. That's my good. Did anybody else pick that, or is there a
I do have some
way
things,
to follow it up?
I do have some things to say about Dawn of the Dead, but we'll get to that.
Nice.
Well, it's.
I'll just say.
Did somebody pick Day for their good?
I picked Day of the Dead as my good.
That could be a segue. Who had something else to say first?
Well, Steve's last though, because he's hosting, so it's only me and Steve left.
All right, Gabe, Day.
Day of the Dead. Day of the Dead. For me, it's the most interesting of his first three zombie flicks, and my main reason for choosing it as my good has three letters, and that is Bob. But I think, as I said before, the sense of claustrophobia really works for it, and I feel that Romero is getting more what he's going after in Day than in Dawn, and it feels more like like he actually learned something into these years, and that Day is more accomplished, although it does still have its faults.
It does feel a lot more polished, though, and a lot more planned, especially in terms of like the realization of the zombies and all the makeup effects and everything. It feels like finally Savini actually had like what he needed to work with.
and talk about an opening sequence. I mean, those ends coming out of the wall, that's scary as shit. And I think also the thematic terrain that it explores is a bit more interesting than just the pure consumerism stuff in Dawn of the Dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Dawn is not particularly. I mean, it's certainly not subtle, and it's not particularly deep.
Well, Day isn't subtle either. But,
oh no!
But
Don't get me wrong.
But I think it's more fertile, and it tries to go deeper into that stuff. And I mean, the concept of training a zombie to do stuff is so good that it was taken out again in the 2000s by Danny Boyle when he did 28 Days Later. That's all I could think about when viewing that movie. I'm like, Day of the Dead did this before. Day of the Dead did this before, you know?
The explores the issue of martial law a little bit.
Yeah.
I can't remember a movie that I saw that the first time I saw it, I hated as much as Day of the Dead. And like, I was actually, it made me physically ill.
Oh, wow.
And now I think I like it as much as Dawn. It's a movie that, like, every time I rewatch it, I don't know if it's just because, I mean, it's probably a combination of, you know, the first time I watched it, first of all, I probably shouldn't have watched a really gory movie at the time. I was, like, homesick, and it was not the ideal time. But also, I mean, maybe, you know, rewatching it, some of the rougher edges of the performances of kind of, like, just the fact that I'm used to it, it's kind of, it doesn't rub me the wrong way quite as much. I hated the music for the longest time. And now I sort of alternate between tolerating it and actually really liking some parts of it. There's one moment where the main character, Sarah, goes out to visit, like, the helicopter pilots in their little home, and there's this cool
chilling,
and it kind of goes from the pure synths to this kind of, like, slightly Caribbean steel drum thing, and
totally different vibe.
Yeah, and it's got a good atmosphere and everything. I think the thing that I just like keeps me from loving it is some of the performances really are just awful.
Very.
And I think, I mean, you've got that in Night too, but the first time you see it, you can't really tell where it's going.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the thing with Night and Dawn is, you know, it feels like it's kind of like a bunch of people who are just like, hey, let's put on a show. So you kind of forgive a lot of the performances a bit more.
Not me.
But, no.
No, I like, what's his name? Polito, is that his name?
Joseph Pilato?
Yeah, that guy's going nuts. He's funny.
Oh, I hated him. I hated especially Gary Clark.
Which one is this?
He's like the big guy.
Mm-hmm.
Who?
Oh yeah.
It's like, what was it? It's like you almost. You almost killed Rickles. And it's just, he's just terrible.
But what always surprised me was that it was the least well regarded of the the Dead flicks.
There's in the documentary that comes with it. It starts off with George Romero saying, you know, you've got the purists who like Night of the Living Dead, and then you've got sort of like most people are really into Dawn of the Dead, and then you've got the real trolls like me. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of true.
It's got that great imagery with all the hands punching through the wall in the very beginning. That's a great image.
That kind of comes back near the end, you know, when they're into that little
overwhelmed.
Yeah,
totally overwhelmed. I mean, it's so claustrophobic. The whole ending, you're just like, you know.
It actually felt like Romero was also sort of pushing himself visually too, and it might be the fact that it came, you know, sort of just after Creepshow, where he, you know, which was obviously sort of a big jump in terms of polish. But I mean, thinking about like when they're sort of running through the caves, escaping,
and there's that color again.
There's, you know, the sort of splashes of color, and like
Yeah.
He really does, like, it does feel, at least he's really trying. It's less haphazard than some of his earlier stuff, which really seemed like he would just sort of shoot everything he could. I think he's actually said this. He just sort of gets coverage from every angle he can think of, and then kind of like cuts it together.
Yeah.
And Bob, come on, show some love for Bob.
Bob and Beethoven.
Yeah, Bob's pretty great character, huh? Forerunner to Big Daddy or whatever his name is from Land of the Dead.
Oh, I thought you were going to say BioShock.
I think I like most about Day of the Dead is it kind of sums up Romero's worldview in a way, or it can be found. I mean, he puts so much of himself into each of his films, in terms of his ideas and whatnot. I mean, as unpolished or whatever as they can be said to be, I think that line that the character John the Caribbean guy says, that's the trouble with the world, Sarah Darling. People got different ideas concerning what they want out of life. I think that's like pretty much.
Oddly enough, I mean, Day of the Dead, I find interesting because it's actually the way it ends is for some characters actually a lot more upbeat than Romero's other movies. But at the same time, I don't think he's got another movie that like has such a sort of oppressive feeling of nihilism.
Well, they really set the table with the statistics that the scientists calculated what the ratio was of living people to dead on the earth, and the number was absurd. I think that if you did the actual math, then maybe it wouldn't come out right. But I mean, they were vastly. I mean, it was pretty much hopeless. The planet has been gone. It's been decimated. And that's a really interesting scenario to explore. And since so much of it takes place in this bunker underground, so much of the space, and you have the prior two films, exploring these things, and like the whole claustrophobia of it really kind of allows your mind to kind of wander to the outside, because you're thinking about what it must be like. You're using your imagination. He's engaging you in a way to think about like the world he's creating. And I think that he creates,
plus the zombies look dead
good or
instead
bad.
Of blue.
Yeah. Good or bad, he's creating worlds too, that have their own internal logic. It might not function as highly as maybe some other films, but it has its own. There's something there, I think.
And he definitely had more of a budget to work with, so that does help.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I think
there's something there.
It was originally going to be something like 15, but they couldn't raise it. His original script sort of was more elaborate with like an above ground compound and a lot more military guys and going on raids and things.
Dawn of the Dead was written very quickly. It was written, in like 4 weeks or something like that? And it's because of the availability of that mall. He said that mall inspired him, and I guess like they had done it before it opened. I'm not really sure of the story, but I mean, that was like a shake and bake operation. Just boom, like fast. $500,000 raised by Italian financiers, and then all of a sudden that's the biggest success of his career. Biggest success he's had is The Dawn, and then The Day was a successful follow-up. Then that huge break between that and Land. Guys would call it the desert.
Well, I'm going to get away from zombies for a little while.
Good. Because how do you fuck up a city bus with a rocket launcher on top of it?
For my good, last and certainly not least, last and we'll say least, whatever, I don't care. I'm not insecure. But I get away from, like Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, I could kind of take them or leave them. I do consider them to be, kind of disposable. For me, the movie that had the most profound effect on me, the movie I enjoyed the most out of Romero's stuff would have to be his Stephen King adaptation, The Dark Half.
Woohoo!
I thought it was completely dripping in atmosphere, and that's something like, for a successful horror movie especially, it really needs to have that atmosphere, that tone, that foreboding sense of dread. And the dark half, for me, really nailed it. Like, I thought he did for Romero, from what I'd seen of Romero before that, which was essentially just the Dead stuff and Creepshow, the dark half for me was just like, I can't even believe this is the same director. Like, I couldn't believe that I was watching, like, it at times, it almost evoked Carpenter for me, like John Carpenter's better stuff. And even the look of the film, like, I mean, it still had those, like, really bizarre coloring choices. Like I almost remember, like, some stuff filmed almost like it was shot through, like, a purple gradient filter or something, like, it had a really weird look to it, but it was a much darker looking movie. It just had
Maybe
this...
that.
You know what else it had?
What's that?
Bob Joy.
He is so scuzzy in this, and it's great.
He's a greasebag in this movie, man.
It was so odd for me to see him young, because all the stuff I'd seen him in before I watched this was like his sort of like late 90s and more recent.
Oh, dude. Don't look up Desperately Seeking Susan. I still get heart palpitations at young, good-looking Bob Joy.
It also had a great Timothy Hutton, like it was. It was just
Rooker.
Michael Rooker as the sheriff, yeah, and as far as King stories go, it was always one of my more well-liked Stephen King stories. So it was,
one of the things I really liked about it is, Stephen King's always writing about writers.
Yep.
This really felt like it was something particular to writers. It wasn't just that a writer happens to be the lead character in the story.
Yeah, it really kind of felt.
It brought a sort of metaphorical aspect and literally embodied it, which is something that's tough to do. It's a hard line to
Do you
walk.
remember a few weeks ago when we were doing the Carpenter episode and we got on the topic of In the Mouth of Madness?
Yeah.
The dark half to me feels like had Stephen King written In the Mouth of Madness.
Yeah,
Right?
definitely. And it had that almost, like I remember when I read the King story.
A little smaller in scale, but a lot more personal, right?
Yeah. And it almost felt, to an extent, not literally, not like, completely and over the top, but in a sort of a small fashion, it almost felt a little autobiographical.
Yeah.
It almost felt a little.
It is. It's the Richard Bachman.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
It's the whole Stephen King Richard Bachman dichotomy.
Yeah.
It's my kid sister's favorite King book, actually.
It's probably mine as well, to be honest with
Although
you.
it obviously, I mean, if from nothing else but the name, it's obviously sort of playing off the whole Donald Westlake.
Yeah.
Richard. Thing. So.
And one of the things that the movie really impressed me in doing was to get that across, that the doppelganger could be real.
Yeah.
And that I mean that stuff with, is it crows?
Yeah.
No, sparrows.
Yeah. Sparrows at the end. Yeah.
They're psychopomps.
Bitches.
But I mean that you read that in the book and you learn that there's a movie that's going to be made that's going to feature some of that stuff, and you're like, WTF,
And that's something else. That final scene where they go through the wall at a house and whatnot, that looked awesome.
Yeah.
That looked really
really good effect.
Yeah, and like the sun beaming in through while he's being devoured and stuff. It was just, man, that was a great shot.
I think if there are a couple of things that kept me from loving the movie. They were, one was that you didn't really get a sense of why Thad Beaumont was allowed to walk around free.
Yeah.
I mean, they tried to explain it, but it's kind of like, okay, the sheriff knows you. But at a certain point, that only goes so far. Right?
Yeah. And that did feel a little bit like, like just movie contrivance,
Yeah.
On the other hand, guys, the sheriff was played by Michael Rooker, so his competence must be called into question.
True. The other thing was when Timothy Hutton was playing the George Stark half, I find it really hard to buy Timothy Hutton as a badass.
I don't know, man.
He came
the
off
Stark half. the dark half.
Oh. He almost felt like, at some points, like Bruce Campbell was doing like a goofy evil Ash, you know?
Yeah.
And so some of that didn't quite work for me, but mostly it was a really, like, it felt like sort of that classic King atmosphere. And
Well, one of the things that kills it for me is is it a dream sequence or something with the turkey in the oven?
Yeah.
Oh.
That isn't really, yeah. And I do find the final act, it does kind of venture off the tracks into Romeroville a little bit, like the whole thing with the eyeball, and it's just, it does get a little wacky in the final act.
speaking of eyeballs, I love the surgery scene at the beginning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Did Savini do the effect on this, or was it someone else?
It seems a little high scale for Savini. It definitely, if nothing else, it looked by far like Romero's most expensive movie.
Mm-hmm.
Up to that.
Oh, and Christopher Young's music was really good.
It was great, yeah.
I like
Christopher
him.
Young doesn't get enough respect.
Yeah,
Didn't
he's
he
good.
do the Hellraiser theme too?
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good one.
You know who else doesn't get enough respect? And I had forgotten,
Me.
outside of Streets of Fire, how good looking this woman is.
Oh,
Amy
Diane
Madigan.
Lee. Oh, really? Ed Harris's wife?
Yeah, no, man. But see, in Streets of Fire, you didn't notice Amy Madigan because then you got Diane Lane standing next to her.
Yeah, exactly. Why would you look away?
Yeah.
Your eyeballs just fixated.
Exactly. But outside of that movie, she was actually a half decent looking woman.
I liked her in Field of Dreams. She's good in that.
So there you go.
Fiery.
That's mine. Dark half.
She was.
Oh, you know what I
scary.
liked her in? I liked her in Pollock. You ever see Pollock? She played, what was it, Guggenheim? Peggy Guggenheim. She was good in that.
I never did see that.
That's a great last name.
I could say that name all day. Guggenheim.
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 Way
When
to
I
go,
think of
Mike.
attractive ladies, that's always the first name that comes to mind. Guggenheim.
Makes me think of choking.
I knew a girl named Guggenheim.
That's the beginning of a limerick, it sounds like.
I'm going to
All
move
right.
on to bad now.
Oh.
And just to reiterate, to re-qualify, to re-establish our stance on bad as a rule.
To regurgitate.
Yeah, to regurgitate, rehabilitate, whatever. Bad does not necessarily mean bad in the sense of awfulness. It means, maybe it's a good movie, maybe it's an okay movie, maybe it could be an awesome movie if only there weren't that certain something wrong.
Different director.
Yeah,
If
if it were made by somebody else.
The director had swung the bat half a second earlier.
Yeah,
If Steven Spielberg had directed this movie.
And I'm going to start with me, because I can do that.
Back to back.
I'm telling you, I'm going back to back just because I want to get this out of the way.
If you don't want to talk about zombies anymore?
Yes, exactly. And we already had a pretty lengthy discussion on this movie. I'm throwing Dawn of the Dead in there as my bad.
Okay, Dawn of the Dead was also my bad, so we'll kind of mesh this together.
Let's tag this team.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna bridge fuck the shit out of George.
After back to back, ass to ass.
Oh, come on.
Come on, let's get this over with.
Dawn of the Dead for me.
It's a good movie. Oh, sorry.
No.
Shut up, McVeigh.
All right.
Dawn
I'll
of
keep
the
my
Dead
silly accent out of it.
is actually a concept that I really like. The idea of a bunch of survivors huddled in a shopping mall, waiting for doom. But for me, the concept is so much more interesting than the actual movie was.
Dead Rising was the shit on Xbox 360.
I love that it even had a disclaimer right on the front of the box. This game is in no way affiliated with George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead.
Sure, it wasn't Capcom.
But yeah, no, my big problem with Dawn of the Dead is so much of the movie for me, like the direction just feels so haphazard, the effects.
Execution.
Yeah, it
Budget. You got $500,000.
He got $500,000, but Sam Raimi had what, $7,000 for Evil Dead and did a better job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Rodriguez had $5,000 for El Mariachi, and he did a better
Let's
job.
not talk about El Mariachi.
Okay, I'm gonna be sort of like the nice guy in the middle. Mike's got a point. $500,000 for a movie on the scale of Dawn of the Dead is very little money. On the other hand,
imagine how much better that $500,000 would have looked though if the movie didn't feel like it was 3 hours long.
They didn't spend it on
Romero. It has to be said, Romero's approach to shooting is, and frankly, I mean, especially at that period in his career, he didn't have a great understanding of cinema.
And it is, for lack of a better word, it is entirely self-indulgent.
The word I like to use is dog shit.
I can't even say dog shit because it's not an ugly. There's some good ideas in there, but
dude, there's a scene at the end of this movie where a guy, it feels like it's 10 minutes long, watching a big fat biker with his arm in a blood pressure device getting ripped apart by zombies.
No.
You don't love that.
He doesn't try to save himself.
He obviously came with a separate arm. And at some point, the zombies came near him, and he was like, "What?" and turned a bit, and the arm fell off.
I can't get away from the zombies. My blood pressure's too high.
That blood pressure machine is like the new Samsung Galaxy S3 or an iPod back then. I mean, that was like the future. Yeah.
No, my problem with it is
the future.
He plays with the metaphor. Like I mean, he thinks he's making something really clever. He thinks he's really being smart, and he's not. He's like, the metaphor is like a bag of wet kittens to the face. You
want to see a good way to use that metaphor? Watch Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
I would like to. I would say though, one does have to take into consideration the time it was made.
Of course,
there was a cultural shift. And malls were relatively new. So it wasn't, I mean, obviously materialism was not a new idea.
Well, I mean, we had, before that, there was, I mean, for science fiction, you had THX 1138, which was just as subtle as Dawn of the Dead, but much better executed. Or before that, you had, what was it, The Swimmer, I think it was called, which kind of dealt with similar themes and stuff, but there's so much stuff out there, and Romero just kind of, I think he was just really confused about what kind of movie he wanted to make. Did he want to make a gore-filled horror movie with a message, or did he want to make a message movie with a little bit of gore in there? And
the thing that he says quite a bit is, I wanted it to sort of be like fun and sort of like a comic book. And it's like, obviously there's a tonal problem.
Yeah, you're obviously failed miserably in that regard.
Yeah, I was going to say that this is a movie that should be 1,000 times more fun than it actually is.
Exactly. It's self-indulgent. He is completely and utterly so caught up in his whole consumerism message, and I'm sure it was something. He went back and he started looking at assembled footage, he started looking at his dailies, and he started thinking, oh my god, that's brilliant, and
oh my god, I thought I cast Austin Stoker in this movie.
But it just, to me, it totally fell flat, and it's kind of one of those things that I hate to use the term, but the idiots who really vehemently defend this movie, it's the first thing they go to. Oh, but man, he was trying to be so intelligent. It was like a zombie movie about how people always buy stuff and we're the zombies. And it's like, dude, shut up and listen to yourself. It's like trying to ask someone to explain the plot synopsis to a season of Buffy. You're going to sound mentally deficient. It just doesn't work.
Do you like the remake?
I did enjoy the remake more, but again, it wasn't something that, it's not the movie I own. And I'm a bit of a Snyder fan, but even the remake just kind of, it just meanders too much.
Mm-hmm.
All the stuff in the remake, you get all the stuff on the rooftops, where the guys are writing down the celebrity names, and I'm like, why does all this really even have to be here? It's just like,
because it's hilarious.
But it's not hilarious. It's just kind of stupid.
I was being facetious.
Good times.
But on the other end, a zombie gets his head chopped off by an helicopter.
This is also true. This is,
Oh, and also, and this might be a testament to Tom Savini, the zombie who gets the close-range shotgun blast to the face right in the beginning.
yeah.
That's beautiful.
And when the movie moves, like when it does kick in, it really kicks in well. You know, there are moments that I really enjoy, but it's not something, you know, and I'm kind of in a similar situation to Gabe in that I came to it late. It wasn't really late. Like I was a teenager the first time I saw it. And, you know, it was one of those situations like, this is it. This is what everybody makes a big deal about. This is the movie that everybody says is the greatest zombie movie of all time.
And that's
Really?
my problem. I want the movie that I was picturing in my head when people were describing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And even like, I mean, I had a similar problem with Night of the Living Dead. You know, the first time I saw Night of the Living Dead, I was like, really, this is it? You know?
I mean, they're definitely victims of their own reputation.
Exactly. And I think that's why, you know, like I can't pick it as an ugly because it is one of the blueprints. I mean, you know, like I said in the intro, George Romero does have that reputation of being the man who is single-handedly responsible for how we perceive zombies in this day and age. You know, like Walking Dead and, you know, Resident Evil and all these video games, like, you know, the zombie.
It would not be.
I mean, I think that's kind of true because before that it was only linked with the voodoo.
Exactly.
Like I work with the zombie and stuff like that.
Yeah, and this is it. This is the thing. It did all come from Romero. He did create it, and I do definitely give him credit for that. But now it's gotten to the point it's become so saturated. It's like ninjas in the 1980s. I really wish he hadn't created this modern zombie. You know.
I want to come back to a minor point, just for clarification. I've been looking at the Evil Dead budget, and estimates show it somewhere between 150 and 375,000.
Really?
So way more than 7.
Okay, I thought it was like 7 to 11,000.
But how much of that was sponsored stuff?
Well, I can point out one film to make the point. Primer. Has anybody seen Primer?
I have, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Several times.
It's well, you have to watch it. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It was like negative penny. It was like the least expensive movie shot on film stock, but the guy only had enough for one take, not even 2 takes, you know. So what they did is they rehearsed the heck out of it, right?
Yeah.
And they were able to make that movie, and I recommend everybody go out and watch it like 2 or 3 times because that's how many times it takes to understand it. But that's a film that was done for $0, all profit margin. You know, like every dollar
and totally meticulous.
Profit.
It's a meticulous movie. I mean, you know, it's not like it's not haphazard. It's not by the seat of your pants. It doesn't have to be.
Right. So it can't be done.
It didn't have the luxury of
or I mean, how much did pie cost? You know,
pie wasn't expensive either.
Yeah, that's another cheap one. Okay, so but
I wanted to sound intelligent, and I just looked up Six String Samurai, but then I realized that cost $1 million.
That movie was awesome.
All that money went into the sunglasses.
I wouldn't go so far as saying it was awesome.
It was awesome.
Awesomely bad.
Gabe, his boots are beautiful.
Nice shoes, Gabe, to die in.
Nice to get Gabe to sleep.
I want to get in here. I want to draw the contrast between George Romero he's an icon of getting it done for cheap, you know. I mean, so Martin cost what, $80,000? That was profit, you know. That was a big hit. You know, I mean, he's got a prolific career. He's produced. He had that lapse between '93 and 2000 with The Dark Half, and which I think bombed, right? And then you had Bruiser, which was a throwaway, forgettable. The true comeback was Land of the Dead, you know. So I mean, he at least can take that budget. You know, he's a you know, like more. I think he loves the process more than anything else. I don't think he could do anything else. You know, it's you know, I defer.
Moving on with the bads. Who's next? Who wants to go next?
I'll go since I.
We'll
My
go in
bad,
reverse order. Go, Gabe.
Yeah. My bad is Creepshow.
Oh.
Hey, it's my bad. I really.
Profound sadness.
You just killed our childhoods.
Well, I think that's the thing. I didn't come to it from a nostalgic point of view, and I mean, I kind of like it. I do like it. I concede all your points, but for me, it's too cheesy and laughable to work totally.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the balance between the humor and the horror doesn't really work for me and just comes out as a little bit forced. Although I do understand what it's going for, and I have read some of DC comics, and I do know that they're replicating that tone well. It just doesn't work for me.
It is their tone.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it's operating on that whole like Lost Boys and Fright Night wavelength, right?
You just lost me.
What?
I hate both those movies.
Fuck yourself, Forbes.
Man, do I hate. Well, it depends which Fright Night we're talking about. Are we talking about the 12-year-olds in adult bodies original?
We're talking about all the Fright Nights.
All the Nights of Fright.
But I mean, there are some segments. I mean, the one I really liked still is the one with the cockroaches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
awesome.
it was bursting through the skin. Ooh.
And gloriously profane.
And of course, I mean, Leslie Nielsen as a psycho killer. How can you not like that?
And I don't know what he's drinking when he's watching them slowly drown in the tide, but that shit looks refreshing.
And I do really like the old comic book aspect of it and stuff. But it just doesn't totally gel with me, and that's why it's my bad. And
Fair enough.
You're wrong, but I'll give you that.
Yeah.
We'll allow it. I almost picked Creepshow as my good because it is a movie that I've watched a fair amount, and while I haven't seen it in the last few years, it's probably been a good decade or more since I've seen it last. I saw it a lot as a teenager before I really knew who George Romero was. And it's always been a movie that I kind of had that nostalgic attachment to, you know?
Mm-hmm. Imagine somebody who's coming into it from a fresh eye and like I think I probably first watched it in around 2000 or so, you know.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Who's next?
I'll go.
Go.
The Crazies. 1973. It's a movie that's pretty much right down the middle for me, as far as pluses and minuses. There is the basic idea is that there's been a plane crash with a bioweapon on it near a town, and it's gotten into the water supply, and it's causing people to go crazy and start murdering each other. So it's a solid setup. Romero really sort of gets the sense of escalating panic really well. There's a lot of sort of bureaucracy that people have to hack through, and they're trying to just get things solved, and that comes across really well. The opening involving a man going insane and burning his own house down is really well handled. Mm-hmm. And the thing for me is it's a movie that the sort of cobbled together feel actually works for me as a positive. There's some stock footage of like bombers flying and military guys at like their little like military control base panels and things and stuff. And And that combined with sort of the slightly shoddy craft, it actually sort of works as this weird, and also his direction of actors, you kind of get the sense that it's almost like a documentary that's been assembled. Obviously, you're dealing with some not so great actors, so there's that, that kind of takes away from that. But it does kind of feel like this strange kind of collage of real world, some kind of panic going on. There's also sort of a really great design approach in having all of these army guys in these bright white
Sports cars?
Yeah,
with these very menacing gas
charging in there, yeah.
Not sports cars, Steve. So a lot of it works really well. I mean, where it falls apart is there are some points where we really should have a competent action director camera. And so a lot of the shooting, of which there's a fair bit in the middle and that kind of drags, feels really fake. The cast isn't great. I mean, there's some really good actors in it. The two head military guys are both really good actors. Richard France plays a guy who's on the weapon development team who's trying to come up with an antidote. And he's the same actor who was the scientist in an eye patch in Dawn of the Dead who came on the TV every so often. And he's pretty good. He's like this nice, cantankerous, sort of funny character, but not in a goofy way, who gets really irritated with all the bureaucracy. But, I mean, the main characters, the lead actor is a unibrow who's supposed to be a Green Beret, but kind of looks like a troll instead of a beret. And his best friend, I mean, he only comes off well because his best friend literally looks like a caveman. And then you've got Lynn Lowry, who is like some kind of strange pixie insect person. So she's just kind of creepy. So, yeah, I mean, it's not great. Obviously, you can only go so far on the sort of cobbled together verite feel if you want to get all pretentious about it. But sometimes it really does work against the movie. But yeah, I think it works probably at least as well as the zombie movies. People tend to sort of view it as a warm-up for the zombie movies, and I kind of feel that's doing it a disservice. It's not a great movie, but it actually works quite well most of the time. So, also the trailer is great. The Crazies.
Yeah. that great scene where the old woman, the granny, is knitting, right, or crocheting, or whatever it is she's doing. The hazmat suit guy comes in and he mistakes her, like, "Oh, where's your husband?" And she gets him. Oh God.
Well, one thing that I have to add about The Crazies is it's another movie where he gets the atmosphere really well.
I mean, it's very, very dated, but I mean, I can overlook that because it's supposed to be place at the time, and stuff looked like that, and apparently people didn't wax their eyebrows. There's actually a great contrast because the main character has this like huge, thick unibrow going, and then there's this like lab assistant that's completely removed her eyebrows and drawn them on with what looks like permanent marker.
And to me, it certainly feels contemporary of something like Shivers, you know.
You know, the thing with watching these movies is it makes me realize, even as sort of shoddy as the first couple of movies that David Cronenberg did feel, compared to Romero, like Shivers feels downright polished.
But I mean, in the same kind of mindset and kind of atmosphere that they're trying to attain, you know, they both feel very 70-ish.
Unstable sort of transition between the counterculture movement and the Reagan years, and so.
Has anybody seen the remake?
I have, and it's actually pretty darn good. I would say it's actually a lot better than the original, I think, in a lot of ways, but it falls apart toward the end when it gets really sort of too big in Hollywood.
But Oliphant is the shit, yo.
Yeah.
kind of supports Steve's thesis that the concepts are really good and it's the treatment, you know.
Yeah, because I definitely vastly prefer the remake of The Crazies to the original.
Well, I'll check it out then.
I very, very much.
It's definitely a lot more horrifying.
and Oliphant is awesome.
Yeah. The original you kind of appreciate as more of a high school film, like, oh, you guys did a good job and had a good idea. But
Yeah. Like I said about Argento, you know, like a lot of his stuff felt like AV Club work. You know, The Crazies definitely feels like an AV Club movie.
I disagree with you on Argento, but I agree with you here.
Yeah, me too.
Mike, what about you? What's your bad?
My bad. Well, I'm going to have to go with Monkey Shines.
Oh,
You're
It's,
bad.
yeah.
Only you're bad.
Well, let me preface the whole thing, the whole spiel here by saying that I enjoy bad movies.
Okay.
And so viewers at home, listeners at home, you know, just understand that when a movie's bad, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It
So
could
this is
be.
why I picked Phenomena as my bad last time.
Yeah, this movie has well, okay. I mean, it's basically thematically about, you know, man's animal instinct being the devil and duality and all these things, right? But it also contains the phrase, and I quote, "You clinical cunt." So you have this great amalgam of all these bizarre, I don't know. It's a riot, you know, with a great creepy poster. and you know, and it's weird because it was a studio film for Romero. It was a $7 million budgeted film, and the box office was real low. I don't think they even made that back. You know, it was like 5 or 6 million or something like that. You know, so that's interesting that you give the guy a little more money. The film underperforms a little bit, not a lot, little bit, a lot of bit. That's a bomb. You know, that's a smear on his a smear on his
But
track
come on,
record.
it's a movie about the telepathic monkey. Who wants to see that?
Poor Romero
okay,
just can't catch a break.
I would like to say, Gabe,
Okay.
in response to that, when I hear movie about a telepathic monkey, I immediately want to see that.
Yeah, exactly. That is a pro. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Hey, monkey, I'm in. Okay.
Hey. Who picked Phenomenon last week?
That was me.
Okay, you got hot Janine Turner, okay, cliffhanger girl. You see her naked ass. Oh, plus column right there. It's a ridiculous movie. I mean, the saccharine opening running sequence punctuated with, a trampoline half twist with bricks flying all over the place when he's hit by a truck. The film's got a quadriplegic protagonist. Now, you don't see too much of that stuff, like in pictures, and that's kind of like why Romero's always kind of like this off to the side director. You know, he's dealing with kind of progressive stuff that maybe the Hollywood system isn't ready to integrate into their films yet, because they're, concerned that, their concern may be that that's going to affect the box office. Whereas if he's independent, that's not going to, and he keeps his budget low, that's not going to affect his concern. So
I think they're more concerned that Romero just plain is.
Well, I mean, yeah, but what, I mean, money talks though. I mean, if there's a market for that, cater to it, and this they gave him $7 million, and it underperformed. I mean, they changed the ending, or they wanted a happy ending. And I'll just cut to the end real quick. The happy ending deviates from many of Romero's other works in the canon. In his entire filmography, he's always got these dark, ambiguous endings. You're not really sure if they made it in Dawn of the Dead, or, well, I guess you could say that Day of the Dead ends pretty cool. But, with some, it's like they're up on the beach in Mexico with Andy Dufresne and Morgan Freeman, like fishing.
But see, and this is the thing with the ambiguity. You want it to be a happy ending, you know what I mean? Like, and you can kind of, you can walk out of there thinking to yourself, it was okay. It all ended up okay in the end, you know. But
Yeah.
but when you get a guy who can be as cynical as Romero,
Yeah.
and you get that really downbeat, browbeater of an ending, you know, it's kind of like, I didn't really enjoy this movie.
Sure, yeah,
I
but
have a question. How do you pronounce the protagonist's, the actor? How do you pronounce his name?
Jason
Behe?
Behe.
Okay. Does he not look exactly like a combination of Ed Harris and Sam Rockwell?
I
He
was
does
thinking
to me.
he's got a little Patrick Wilson in him there. You know, he was a Scientology celebrity whistleblower.
Really?
In addition to being a brick backpacker.
Interesting.
For anybody who hasn't seen the movie, the first thing that happens in the movie, this dude wakes up with Janine Turner's naked ass, gives it a little pat, a little rub down because, you know, hey,
naked
then
ass.
then he proceeds to stretch, you know, like his like physically fit body, and then put bricks in a backpack and go running.
This sounds exactly like the opening scene in the Resident Evil script.
Wow.
In Romero's Resident Evil script. It opened with Chris Redfield getting up in bed and looking at naked Jill Valentine, who was the other main character from the first game, then getting up, climbing a mountain, saving baby condors or something, and bringing an egg back to Jill or some shit.
Okay, I can do it. I mean, he's got Stanley Tucci in the movie. Okay, Stanley Tucci's good. You know, he's
I'd like to think that he had a moment in this movie, exactly like his little big moment before he dies in the movie The Core, where he's sitting down with his, what the fuck am I doing?
He's leering. It's a leering Tucci. Leering Tucci.
Leering Tucci.
Oh, and when there's a reveal in the film where Stanley Tucci turns out to be, I mean, this guy's a quadriplegic now, and he's in a chair, and all of a sudden Stanley Tucci moves in on his old love there, you know, and in the scene where they reveal that, I mean, it's implied throughout. I mean, it's pretty much shouted at you with a megaphone. If Stanley Tucci looks her up and down, I mean, he might as well twist a mustache. But he's presented as this like oily sex symbol, like the
international sex symbol, Stanley.
Yeah,
leering Tucci.
He's presented like the blonde, curly, muscular guy from Top Secret, Nigel. You know, only without hair. You know, like. And you know, Tucci and Janine Turner were roasted alive because Jason Behe or whatever squints evil thoughts, and that's how is that not cool? Squinting evil thoughts, man, with that crazy beard he has.
International sex predator Stanley Tucci.
The movie has steamy quadriplegic sex. It's got Stephen Root playing a villain. It's got an absurdly overbearing mother. It's got great monkey kills. I mean, just great. The monkey goes and kills everybody. It's great.
The monkey kills in this movie are far superior to any monkey kills you may have seen in other movies.
Yeah, like Project.
If you have to see one monkey kill movie this year,
if you have to see one quadriplegic telepathic monkey killing movie this year,
make it Monkey Shines. Oh, say it like the Crazies.
Monkey Shines.
Okay, it's not all good.
Well.
It's not all good. I know. I mean, you got the guy from To Live and Die in L.A. The monkey like slices his hand open. Oh,
and he's the one who says the line "clinical cunt."
Oh yeah. It's an amazing like what the hell moment in the movie. I mean, there's some cursing in this movie. I mean, the guy. He gets really pissed in the movie and he just starts cursing, curses at his mom. He's like, "Fuck you, mom." It's like crazy, you know? You got the, what do you call it? I don't know what his name is, the Live and Die in LA guy.
John Lithgow.
Yeah, that guy. You know, he gets his hand sliced
Mad
open.
about you.
Yeah, exactly.
Depending on your viewing habits.
he
We really
wraps,
cater to the Mad About You crowd.
he wraps his hand up, he covers his bandage, and the actor like still like grabs the banister as he's going up the stairs and his fresh wound. You know, I mean, it's not like it's. I mean, it's like little stuff like that. You know, I don't. It's like they don't catch it. Like I don't know if they see it, and it's like Ed Wood style, like cut. That was beautiful. You know, but like he just has a newly slit. I mean, the actor must be at least mindful that you know his hand is hurt. You know, and he's not just gonna grab with this fresh like wound where you can like poke around inside. You know, I don't know. That's just funny. But that's okay. That's kind of part of the fun cheesiness of it, you know, because the whole movie like slowly builds and at this point becomes like really colorful and energized, and it just starts getting nuts, you know, like it has this amazingly hilarious finale where you know the hero basically like you know it has the cliche, you know, like of course in an 1980s quadriplegic featured film, like the plot element is going to be like Rear Window. Can he move like a little bit, you know, like can he move his hand or something? So that works, and unfortunately, I would have liked to have seen it like Dredd, the new Dredd. He doesn't
I'm going to
take
say something a little controversial and say that Rear Window is the better movie.
I don't know,
Point
man.
for-
I don't know.
point
Telepathic
for
monkey
sir.
kills. I don't think there were any.
Rear Window could have used more telepathic monkey kills.
Yes. Yes.
Hitchcock would have loved that.
And more Stanley Tucci, less Cary Grant.
Well, he does the Hitchcock stuff. He does all the inserts. He puts way too many inserts almost. You know, like he's got the monkey point of view camera, the wheelchair cam, you know, it's like, the wheelchair cam's like the gun cam from District 9, you know, where they mount the camera. That they mount it to his
Only twice
wheelchair
as exciting.
as he drives with a straw in his mouth. It's like it's pretty intense. You know, he's got that strange framing that he does. I don't know, I mean, I enjoyed it far more than I should have.
Yes, you did. Now, everyone's favorite section of the podcast, including the listeners, I'm sure, because you get to ask us what the hell is our problem and stuff, you know, but or roll your eyes at us and curse and swear on us and stuff because we picked one of your favorite movies as our ugly.
Part of the cast.
Oh yeah,
because
because people just love Season of the Witch.
Hey now, Nicolas Cage was the bomb in Season of the Witch. Wait.
I'm not talking about Dominic Senna here.
Okay, ugly. I'm not going first this time. Who wants to go first?
Okay, I tip my hand. My ugly is Season of the Witch.
Original title, Hungry Wives.
Oh.
Wow.
I don't know if that's the original title. That might be an alternate title.
Where to begin?
I call it shitty movie.
It is a very, very, very shitty movie.
Or an alternate title I like to have for all shitty movies, a George A. Romero film.
I mean, there's nothing that actually is rightly done in this movie. The performances are bad, the script writing is bad, the photography is bad, the editing is bad, some of the most awful dream sequences I've ever seen. And
imagine the cheapest 70s house you've ever seen, and then imagine somebody recreating that more cheaply.
Imagine a scene of a wife going up to bed and hearing her daughter screwing in the background and trying to get to sleep, and
She was trying to get to sleep? 'Cause that's not what it looked like.
Was she trying to do something else?
Yeah, she was trying to do
it was
something else.
ambiguous, but it was very strange.
George A. Romero, you're a sick bastard.
Because at first she does. I think at first she does try to get to sleep, and then she gets turned on, and then she gets pissed.
Why does she get pissed? I don't understand.
Are we talking pissed angry or pissed drunk?
Oh, she's just frustrated, and so she turns to witchcraft, of course.
Because her daughter's having sex in the next room, she turns to witchcraft.
And because for some reason she hates her husband, that's never really clear.
It's abusive. He does actually hit her at one point. So
I,
that's the reason
I don't know. I checked it after 46 minutes.
But does he hit her because she's being a witch?
No, because
Does
she
he say,
didn't
"Hey,
do anything
Barbara,
to
you're
stop
being
her.
a witch"? Slap.
Because she didn't storm in on her daughter.
Why didn't you stop your daughter?
And like her daughter's
I was about to
dating
say
this.
something really, really gross, but I stopped myself.
Her daughter is dating this guy who's a total dick.
He's yeah. I don't know where to start with this character, but he's the most awful person you've ever met. And he's not even like good looking, but for some reason he's suddenly like the object of everyone's attraction.
Does he drive a motorcycle?
What's that?
Does he drive a motorcycle?
No.
Everybody likes motorcycle drivers.
He's a college student who likes to play mind games on Lonely Housewives.
Is he in film school?
No. Speaking of great lines, this one does have, "It's only ballin', lady." And that's kind of like it's sort of played flirtatious.
And just that interrogation he has with the housewives when he makes her believe that she smoked pot, and then he gets all a bad police cop on her.
Speaking of the worst drunk acting you've ever seen, this movie features the worst drunk acting you've ever seen.
Oh God, it's awful.
It's really, really awful. Although I do have to say, it does have one quite witty editing trick. And that is, well, it's not a trick. It's just he cuts a scene very well. And this is when the main character sort of does this elaborate witchcraft ritual to have this guy, Greg, come over because she wants to have an affair with him. And so she like does this whole elaborate thing, and it cuts to her reading a book, then cuts to her lying in bed, then cuts to her like having a drink, then cuts to her dialing the phone and saying, "Greg, come over." And then afterwards she's like, "I knew you'd come over. I used witchcraft."
Yeah. He does a lot of that. Like he edits you to wherever you need to be, like with like 1,000 inserts.
So he is totally making fun of it in a pretty great way there.
But and we're talking about Romero feeling so self-important, and in this movie he's like, "Ooh, I'm gonna make a movie about women's issues."
This is the George A. Romero's Stepford Wives. This is like if George A. Romero did like All That Heaven Allows.
Oh man!
Wow.
It's something.
How about you, Mr. Mercer? What have you got for uglies? Regale us.
At the beginning of the podcast, I wanted to go with Martin because I started watching it, and god damn, that was a boring piece of shit.
Oh yes.
But the more we talked about it, the angrier and angrier I've gotten. So everybody get ready and start typing that hate mail, because my ugly is the original Night of the Living Dead.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What an overrated piece of shit.
I don't disagree.
What a big
I
pile of nothing. Just Jesus. Nothing happens. A movie about the zombie apocalypse and nothing happens.
Doesn't the car catch fire at some point?
Oh, no. Yeah.
And that's their special effects budget. Their special effects budget included a car on fire and the little girl's eyeshadow.
It's the thing with that is it's really any criticism you throw at it is accurate. It's terribly acted. It's not well written. The characters are almost entirely irritating to an incredible degree. Virtually nothing happens. There are a whole bunch of continuity errors, editing errors. So all of that's totally valid. At the same time, for some reason, the atmosphere of it works for me.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's because you're a snob, Forbes.
Yeah, but it's not just Forbes though. It doesn't work just for him. It works for everybody because that movie was a hit, big hit.
The thing is, I don't buy into all of the sort of like supposed subtext that's there, and
weren't we talking about that earlier? That it only works on an intellectual level after 30 years, and then just layer on crap.
Yeah.
Yeah, 30 years of people drawing their own conclusions when all it was a bunch of people in a house.
Ooh, a black man survives. It must mean something.
They knew him and he was the best actor for the role. It wasn't any kind of social statement.
Yeah.
I think it's politically relevant because you don't see stuff like that coming out of studios. I think critics more roundly were criticizing, or over time, the filmmakers' lifestyles themselves. I mean, because they cast the lead actor without.
And how it was made, it definitely signaled a shift. And it was part of that sort of late 60s transition in a big way.
You know what? I remember? I remember being a little kid and going on a camping trip. My friend Dougie had a camper, and like all the neighborhood kids and our dads, we like dropped out of Boy Scouts because it wasn't any fun. And we all went like on ourselves to go on like camping trips. And they had a little portable TV. And I remember Mr. Krause had given us this movie, and he kind of started building it up, it's like the scariest movie. It's called Night of the Living Dead, right? So we watched the movie, and we're all scared out of our wits because at the time we're young kids, and that was a genuinely scary movie because we were out in the middle of the woods, right? And in the middle of the woods, it was pitch black. We had a fire, but we were inside the camper with electricity watching this movie. And then, one of the dads goes on the outside, starts banging on the window. It's scary as hell. But
Did you start hacking at his hand with a kitchen knife?
Right? Or just, blast him with a gun. That's it. Oh, shit. Shit escalated fast. We had, the rest of the night to basically be awake and scared. Because we're sitting out there in the middle of nowhere, and just the concept, and I think that's what caught fire. The concept of the masses being the true horror.
And conceptually it was something genuinely new.
It was a good idea, horribly executed.
But
which seems to be a trend.
I would argue that a good horror film should not require being out in the woods at night.
Yeah.
To work.
But I mean,
Spotlight.
I think there are still some sequences that definitely work and that are scary in that movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually think the zombies in Night of the Living Dead are much better than the ones in Dawn of the Dead.
Well, I mean, Dawn of the Dead, it was more, he had his makeup budget, and he had, a means, he had Tom Savini, so he had something to draw from. Whereas with Night of the Living Dead, they kind of had to create something terrifying that was more subjective.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in that regard, I think they definitely succeeded. I think the zombies in Night of the Living Dead were,
I think we just totally hijacked John's Ugly.
They looked like corpses. However, the movie itself just plain sucked.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's why Martin's great contribution is Tom Savini. Actually, that's where they to open up the wrists and everything like that on the victims. You had Tom Savini doing all his work, and then he popped up in Dawn of the Dead and gave the whole zombie series a great direction. Just it's going to be gore. It's going to be because the first one has a little bit. They're eating chicken livers and stuff. Yeah, but I mean the gore, the color, I mean all that stuff. That's just quantum. That was a quantum leap when you look at the two of them.
Well,
back to back.
Well, go John. I was gonna say that just quickly that the black and white does work in its favor because it feels more like a movie from the 50s or something.
Yeah, that's true.
But go John, continue bashing on it.
Oh, no, I wasn't going to say anything deeply profound. I was just going to add to the whole Tom Savini thing. You throw headphones on the zombie and look what happens. Fucking magic, man.
I'm gonna stick with the zombie theme here. I'm not gonna pick Night of the Living Dead because while I do feel it's entirely overrated and it is generally a piece of crap, there are certain contributions that it did make to popular culture that I can't deny it, you know? However, I cannot say the same for Land of the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
How do you fuck up a city bus with a rocket launcher on top of it?
Oh my god, that movie was a steaming, wretched pile of absolute garbage.
I remember reading the plot synopsis back during its years in development hell, and I was like, Dead Reckoning. Jesus, that sounds awesome.
But I mean, the whole, like, what was it, Dennis Hopper or whoever it was with the feudal society and
Zombies, man.
Yeah.
Creep me out. I love that line.
Like,
have you seen Survival or Diary?
I have.
Oh, Dennis Hopper? No way, he gets, I'm sorry, spoiler alert. Land of the Dead, Dennis Hopper, he gets killed.
Okay, the main villain?
The main villain. Yo, you know what the best Dennis Hopper scene in that movie though is like when he tells his like buddy to get down and then shoots him in the back of the head. He's like, oh, quick! Oh, zombie! Quick, get down! And then he just shoots the other guy who's like,
that'd be awesome too.
We're not saying Dennis Hopper isn't a good, mean son of a bitch, but man, was he cheesy in this.
It was
movie.
The whole movie was cheesy, man, right from the get go.
Also, the entire score consisted of 2 notes.
Yeah, it was just
Anything good you want to say about Dennis Hopper? Remember that he played King Koopa.
Yeah. But it's just, you know, the whole movie feels so overwrought. It feels so just, like, all the effects and stuff, like, it feels so overcooked, overdone.
Over digital.
And the whole, like, the zombies showing signs of intelligence and yada yada. Oh my god, man. Really? Like, what the?
well, that's just taking the
zombies are us.
From Day of the Dead.
But in Day of the Dead, he required like training and intensive every single day lessons and all of this stuff, and then he could sort of like figure out how to pick up a gun. And then this, it was just like, I guess we can communicate and know what we're doing and know how to use firearms.
At that point, it's like it does for the series what Alien Resurrection did for the Alien trilogy. It took it out of a different door. You know, like in Resurrection, it goes out the comedy door. In Land of the Dead, it goes out the allegory door. You know, where it's like, okay, you guys, you all know that this is all like social commentary. So this whole series is basically about revolution. You know, so it's taking like that final step, or not the final step, what I thought would be like, you know, the final step, but I guess he kept going with the series inexplicably with the other two, which I haven't seen. I'm sorry to say.
I think
I would say
the whole thing with Land of the Dead and then Diary and Survival of the Dead, I think what it all boils down to is Romero really likes money, and people offered him money to make these movies. He got paid.
Well, he gets to make movies at least.
Yeah, they're just they feel
to say that they're any less self-important.
They feel entirely and utterly like commercially bankrupt. They just feel so. They don't feel original even in the slightest bit. It's like he's ripping himself off.
Yeah,
you know?
He's planning for retirement.
I was gonna say that the biggest sin of Land of the Dead is that it's forgettable. You know,
entirely forgettable.
Whatever you want to say about night, dawn, or day, but at least they have, you know, memorable scenes and kills and whatever. You know, there's nothing memorable in Land.
Asia Argento is amazing in it. She's so good.
I was just going to bring up Asia Argento.
Yeah, is that Asia? Is that? I'm sorry.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm just going with how the guys were pronouncing it last week.
You can't trust them, John. They're Canadians.
Whenever I've heard Romero or Argento pronounce it, it's been Asia.
Ah, that great tattoo she's got.
She's great to look at.
Cholo, you got John Leguizamo. Yeah,
That was my next criticism.
and Bob Joy.
That's the
so
most-
slimy.
that's the most Leguizamo could be. I think in this movie, he's got his own meter on 11.
It does have joy.
Let's just, leave it at,
Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright are in it.
I don't
Yeah,
care. I honestly don't care.
And I think they probably don't say much about it at this point.
Yeah.
No.
I honestly,
They probably say it was great to meet him.
Liam Neeson was also in The Phantom Menace. We're not talking about that right now.
You leave Liam Neeson alone.
Man, Liam Neeson was in Darkman. And don't start defending that.
That comes
Darkman is awesome.
That comes later. Silence!
Take the fucking elephant.
Oh my god, Land of the Dead. It sucks. It was horrible. Steaming pile of garbage. Very stupid movie. Don't waste your time. If you do, and you actually like this movie, I don't want to speak to you.
Well,
I don't even want to know you.
I'll say this: at least
Harsh.
it's better. At least it's better than Season of the Witch.
Yeah, okay. If you
And it is
hey,
better than Diary and Survival.
Season of the Witch, at least. Oh no, I'm not even going to go there. Never mind. I'm just going to leave Season of the Witch. It's best for me to shut my mouth when it comes to Season of the Witch. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it some other time when we're not recording a podcast that's going to be internationally distributed. Who's next?
Me.
Go.
Knight Riders. I'm going to keep this concise because I think we're up to like 3 hours now. All right.
This podcast is almost as long as Dawn of the Dead.
Right. Knight Riders. The idea behind Knight Riders is that there's this little community of knights, modern day knights who ride motorcycles instead of horses.
Awesome.
Ed Harris is the leader. It is
He's
terrible.
awesome too.
No, he's not. Let's start off. Terrible action directing. George Romero may be able to do some things. He cannot direct action sequences. And for a movie about knights fighting on motorcycles, that is a critical blow.
Think about how fucking awesome this movie would have been if it had been Hal Needham's Knight Riders.
Amazing.
Blue for real too.
More headbands, more green screen.
Thumbs up, baby.
Yeah, but the thing is, this movie is the problem. One of the main problems with this movie is it's not like a fun action romp. It's like a serious philosophical. Like Ed Harris is a modern day man trying to live the life of a knight.
Yeah, chivalry is dead in the 20th century.
He comes off as volatile and bitter and whiny and just mentally ill. The main villain
he does think he's a knight.
The main villain in the movie is the most charismatic man in the movie. It's Tom Savini. So you just want to root for him. Tom Savini's really good in this. He's like the only one who's really good.
How bearded
the
is
movie
Tom
is
Savini
just
in
like
this
it's.
movie?
Oh, he was very bearded.
Yes. Yeah.
He was like a conquistador. He was like Tom Savini in this would be like a perfect like evil Prince John.
Yeah.
I wonder why I'm asking this when I've seen this like 100 times. I fucking know how bearded Tom Savini was in Knight Rider.
I would say that this probably has the most horrifying scene of George Romero's entire career, and that is a photo shoot featuring a Tom Savini in nothing but a codpiece, and nicely greased up, reclining with two ladies on a like molded Knight Rider sign.
I love that scene. How what is it? They're explaining to the girl why she can't, the photographer, why she can't take these photos. What is he says something really funny actually. That's it'll come to me. It's something. Okay, keep going. I'll think of it.
But yeah, basically like it's trying to be built around this whole like idea of like making this like outsider life with this great philosophy, but it's just kind of like, no, you people are all just insane and this is terrible and you're all wasting your adult lives like prancing around in leotards and fighting on motorcycles for like an imaginary kingdom. The movie ends in the most ridiculous way like you could conceive of, wherein Tom Savini challenges Ed Harris for the crown. He gets it. Everybody's kind of like happy. It's like they're all a family again. But then Ed Harris like drives off on his own with his he's actually got an Indian sidekick in this.
No joke. No, it's real.
Stops at a McDonald's and like viciously assaults a police officer who was hassling them before. The entire crowd in McDonald's cheers him on. This man just walks in armor in 1981 and destroys a police officer. And
well, dude, I'd have cheered that shit too.
And then he drives off, and then he kind of like, you see a little bit of blood trickling, and then next thing you know, he's just slammed by an 18-wheeler and just destroyed. Like, it's trying to be some kind of, I mean, as pretentious and meaningless as Easy Rider is, this is like trying to be Easy Rider.
Or Vanishing Point.
Vanishing Point.
And failing completely.
At least Vanishing Point is like, got cool car chases in it. But this is like all of the like pretentious emptiness of Easy Rider, but copying it with Knights in 1981.
And I bet Romero thought it was absolutely brilliant.
Oh, I'm sure he did. And it does have like every actor he's ever worked with, I think, was in this movie. It's just awful. It's got Merlin is like the doctor / magician in it.
Yep.
He's this like scat talking black guy. Terrible. Randomly like, shut up, boo, yeah, fight the dragon.
Watch me dance.
I owned this movie on VHS.
Do you still have it?
I think it's at Dad's place, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna dig that shit out. And then we're gonna watch 10 minutes of it and then put on Split Second.
Yeah, it's the thing. It's not as entertaining as it sounds.
No, it's a pretty horrible movie.
It's a slog. It feels like the pacing is all over the place. It feels like it should have ended halfway through, and then it just keeps going and going.
I wish I had picked it as my good. Who's left? Who have we got left?
Nobody.
Nobody?
I'm left.
We're
I'm
done?
left. I gotta go.
We're all undead by now.
Mike, did you pick an ugly?
I do have an ugly. Are you ready?
Ready.
Knight Riders.
For all the reasons that Andrew listed.
The
Fucking Knight Riders.
A state of mind.
All right, so, I remember that thing I said before. It's irrelevant. I'm not going to try to crowbar it in. I do want to say that there is a theme to this movie. It's supposed to be I think the intention was true freedom is lost in a society of conformity and corruption, but I like to think of it as everyone has a good time except Ed Harris. And, or call it, the alternate title to that would be like people hanging out and talking. That would be the other, I mean, it's a pretty absurd comedy, basically about a bunch of cosplay who want to like let their freak flag fly, but can't like pay their bills. They got money troubles, and apparently
is clinically depressed.
Okay, so it's based on the real life group, and that I don't know how he's associated with it, but I looked at the title, and that's the Society for Creative Anachronism.
The SCA, yeah. That's these guys.
Real life. Yeah, yeah.
They're very, very much a big thing.
Well, I mean, when I look at it, it's kind of like Romero's Inception, and by that I mean how
we got to put a dream within your dream.
It's like, let me explain. It's like, okay, so Nolan's Inception in a way is kind of like about a filmmaker and filmmaking, and like kind of Knight Riders is about like, Romero, yeah. But basically, like, Romero's, like, kind of view on filmmaking almost. Like, it's a film about, like, artistic integrity versus selling out, man. And
a whole bunch of people sitting around doing nothing.
And can I just say, in 1981, artistic integrity versus selling out was only about 3,000 years old.
Coincidentally,
I'd also like to add how much better this movie would be if we got the Inception when Ed Harris got hit by the trunk at the end.
or have that happen, right as Stephen King in his cameo as a yokel says,
"Oh my god,
fake."
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's
Stephen
fake.
King's worse in this than he is in Creepshow.
There's Stephen King and his wife, actually.
Oh my god, it's the most awful thing ever. I do have one positive thing about this, and that it's actually, for a movie made in 1981, it's one of the few movies probably that are that old where I've seen a homosexual couple treated just as any other romantic couple. And that's kind of cool.
Other than the fact that basically Romero is saying that all cosplayers are homosexuals.
Well,
it was just two guys.
It's evidence of. It's like in a way it's like Monkey Shines. It's evidence of progressiveness. He's talking with a homosexual relationship, and this one it's no thing. Monkey Shines, quadriplegic sex. When is that ever a thing?
It's too bad that
Kudos to Romero.
It's too bad that he attached these progressive ideas to such horrible, shitty movies.
Yes.
The Ambassadors.
Yeah. And of course, a lonely housewife resorting to witchcraft to kill her husband is a very progressive idea.
But look, it's the genre. It's the genre of horror that we're talking about. We are doing a horror film director. And in the, horror films are very much the genre where these ideas are introduced, that and science fiction, because you can have these dissociative qualities about them. Like science fiction removes you from what you're familiar, defamiliarizes you, and that way you're able to kind of understand something from a different perspective. He's doing it with horror. And in a way, his horror setups are like science fiction setups or fantasy setups. I think I said that Dawn of the Dead earlier was like fantasy. It had that kind of. Well, anyway, I do see what you're saying about the Pippin and Punch relationship. That's but the film is pretty terrible. Even
it also isn't a horror movie.
I just wanted to say, one positive thing about it. I want to say that redeems the movie.
Well, I'd say that the soundtrack is hilarious. I think it's a funny film. It doesn't take itself seriously.
Yes,
that's kind of an.
It's like easy listening folk, not like proper folk.
I can tell you with first-hand experience, no folk is easy to listen to.
The best thing about Knight Riders is the cover.
Yes, I was going to say that. Thank you, Gabe.
I wish the cover had been done by Frazetta.
The best thing about it is Ed Harris's really large, angry, physical, angsty performance as Billy King Williams. King William. What do you call it?
He actually every morning he flagellates with a twig.
Yeah, naked in a pond.
How are you supposed to relate to this guy? He's
he spends most of the movie yelling at the top of his lungs, being naked in ponds.
Sounds like Ed Harris.
Running his worldwide wrestling / gladiatorial combat / overlong meandering Renaissance fair meets NASCAR kind of whole thing lifestyle that he's somehow fabricated for himself.
Lord, this movie is an Ed Harris biography.
and it's a record. It's a testimonial to the fact that Ed Harris had hair at one point.
It's a testimonial to the fact that Ed Harris is fucking insane.
The word for it is intense. We'll call it intense.
It's not a horror movie, but George Romero has directed the single greatest documentary the world has ever seen.
It's funny that Savini's character is the only one that obtains his dream, or he wins. Andrew's totally right. He's the star of the film. He's the most charismatic and everything. And Harris is the better actor, more intense, but Savini's fun to watch. He's great.
I think Savini's underrated as an actor. He's actually one of the best things.
Savini seemed to grasp the idea that they were making a movie about knights on motorcycles.
Yeah, exactly.
And to go back to what Andrew said, or Gabe said about the cover, and then Andrew said about, if Frank Frazetta, he wished Frank Frazetta had painted the cover. If Frank Frazetta had painted the cover, it would have been an oiled up Savini in a codpiece with women dangling off him, right? And there probably would have been would have been a panther in there somewhere too.
You'd have had Ed Harris down in the bottom corner, like on the typical cover. And then you'd have Savini up taking 90% of the poster, like fucking Death Dealer. We're talking like
he would be
corded muscles like the cover of a Man-O-War album.
Yes, and he would be greased down wearing a codpiece with women hanging off of him. And there'd be a panther in there.
There were women hanging off. Several times. It's several times during the film. You know what's really funny is that even though like he's supposed to romantically kiss Christine Forrest at the end, Christine Forrest is George Romero's wife, and she's like an actress and an actor in all of the different films that all the different. She pops up all the time. So Monkey Shine, all that. So like at the climax of the film, Savini just gets this like happiness. It's like he's so happy. He achieves like his American dream or whatever, and like basically he goes in and pecks her on the cheek. Like, it's like at this odd angle. It's so funny. It's like the big romantic climax, and he just dips into the cheek. It's such an awkward, like, moment, because it's the director's wife. Savini's clearly uncomfortable. I mean,
you know what, though? Actually, Mike, the funny thing is, though, Mike, I actually read that differently, because one of the things that makes Savini so likable in the movie is he's got this kind of, like, really, like, sweet, innocent little relationship with Chris Romero, and it's like I don't think they were sort of going for that like big climactic like romantic kiss. It was just kind of like they're just nice and they're together.
He looks like Ben Kingsley as a sex offender. Did you guys see the picture I just sent you?
Yes.
Oh God.
Oh man.
I love that there's all these like kind of hilarious, almost slightly ironic like character performances. I kind of like that. It's fun. I mean, the movie's funny. It's got that Arthurian model of
it's absolutely terrible.
Butterfly face is Merlin. This dude's got like tattoos of butterflies like all over his bald skull and his hands. He looks ridiculous. You got Guinevere.
There's an awful movie.
The night is Guinevere. Savini is like Morgan. How awesome is Savini?
I just realized we've been talking about Knight Riders for 15 fucking minutes.
Well,
okay.
You guys have been talking about Knight Riders. I've been thinking about killing myself.
Oh no way, man! No way. This movie is bad, but it's got good things about it. Like it shows insert shots of the audience of like fat women, these obese women, and like dancing rednecks and like beer guzzling galoots wearing like Hawaiian shirts and like cheeky
costumes. Oh my God, he is an honorary Canadian. He just used the word galoot.
I have to. I'm referring to people wearing like package hugging tights and like who are drinking plenty of Schlitz beer. I mean, it's like it's a totally ridiculous and mildly entertaining film. Actually,
I thought only my dad used that word.
Okay, we gotta stop talking about Knight Riders now.
Who are we doing next week?
Hey, think about the children.
Andrew, who are we doing next week?
We are doing Terrence Fisher.
Continue on our October spooktacular.
Terrence Fisher, the Hammer horror director of Curse of Frankenstein, Horror of Dracula, The Mummy,
all that fun.
Curse of the Werewolf. Yep.
I'm gonna throw some parting thoughts out there on George A. Romero, and you guys can either agree or disagree. Parting thoughts. Number 1, George Romero is a hack.
Semi-agree.
Semi-agree? What kind of
disagree?
I disagree.
Outside of the magic that was Creepshow, I totally agree.
Yeah. I'm with John.
I disagree. I think there's something there. There used to be. He's got enough good work where I think I think he's entertaining. I enjoy him.
Watch
you know?
Martin and come back to us, Michael.
All right. We'll leave it at that. We will agree to disagree. Some of us feel that he is horribly overrated. And-
Most of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
He's entertaining to watch. He's got interesting characters and stories. I mean, his writing is unpolished. You know, he doesn't use a lot
it's
of
not
camera
even
lenses.
it's not even that it's unpolished. It's generally horrible.
So yeah, I know, I get it. It's like a lot of people hanging around and talking. you
Yeah.
know,
He needs to
like-
stop. He needs to stop hiring his asshole as a cinematographer.
Yeah, but he knows how to push buttons with suspense. You know, he loads it with
doesn't know-
social commentary, diverse characters.
He needs to change editors too.
But yeah, the movies are really long. They're like too long, I think.
And
on the-
badly cut. Oh.
Ugh.
Not a whole lot of polish. But hey, he uses local actors, volunteers. You know, he's getting in his community outside of Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh. So
Anyways, next week we're gonna deal with somebody who has a lot more professionalism in him.
Yes.
So, I think all we have left to say is.
See,